Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. I'm here joined with Chad and Sean. We're going to talk a little bit about the calling. These guys are from Team Kitchen Fable. We're going to talk a little bit about the calling, hear their experience. And then the second half of this video, it's literally going to stop. And if you want to go watch the second half, you'll have to go watch it over on the Team Kitchen Fable YouTube channel, which will be linked right here, right now, that you can hit the subscribe button right now. So we're going to talk about the calling. It was a great experience for everyone. There's going to be a lot of calling content coming out over the next couple of weeks. I would love to just continue to do that. I think everyone learned a ton, and it was really cool to get together. We had a lot of ideas while we were at the calling, but not a lot of time to do the content because there was a lot of eating going on. So a lot of eating and a lot of gambling. Not a lot of gambling. We gambled a little bit. We played some roulette. We had some fun.
Little blackjack.
You guys want to introduce yourselves, and we can hop in and chat a little bit about the calling.
Yeah, I can start. Most of you guys have maybe seen me on Louis' channel. I'm here intermittently. My name is Sean, Cardboard Dreams. I run Team Kitchen Fable. My main is Dash, and we'll get more into how the calling went for me later on in the video. But Chad, you want to... Is
that how we're supposed to introduce ourselves in the Flesh and Blood community, is say what our main is? Is that like the first?
Just giving people context as to like what I like to play, Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, so Chad McKittrick, also member of Team Kitchen Fable. Been maining Chain since my early Azalea days in Blitz. Rocked the Azalea. I will say I did manage to have a winning record against Dory towards the end of skirmish season, but we're here to talk about the calling, so...
I just wanted to put that in there. He just wanted to drop that in there. I think we should... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just the chain deck that I ran at the calling was a little bit of my own build, but a lot of the usual cards that you'd expect are in there. Had a pretty good run, ended up 19th in the end.
Wow, that's awesome. I think we should probably highlight this Team Kitchen Fable. Why don't we highlight our sponsors of Team Kitchen Fable? We have Midtown Merchant that hooks you guys up with singles. We've got Compete Sports that's just a blessing to the channel in general, to all the channels. And I think by this time this goes live, we might have. You want to do our jerseys?
Altere, yeah, Altere. He's a small rapper who sponsored our jerseys. We really appreciate him.
Up-and-coming rapper. And then Critical Games and Hobbies. I don't know if they're a sponsor yet, but this video will put a little pressure on them to finalize their sponsorship. Don at Critical Games and Hobbies we might have some deck sleeves coming out. So supporting awesome guys who are really trying to play this game at a competitive level. It was cool to see you guys roll in with jerseys. Like, that was so cool. I think the jersey video probably came out a couple of days ago, but it was so cool to be able to hook that up. And it really made a difference. I was wearing a jersey and people would show up at the table and they'd be threatened the jersey. It's that easy. I was like, look, man, you're probably gonna win.
You'd forget your shackle turn one, and they'd take a deep sigh of relief.
try to shackle a flock of feather walkers. Anyway, why don't we hop in? I'm curious from you guys. Give me your kind of general overview of how you feel about the calling. Give us some context of your thoughts. Even leading into it, what were your expectations, and what did you walk away from with the calling?
So I think there's tons of stuff to talk about when it comes to the calling. There are multiple ways to measure its success, and I think Chad's going to talk a little bit about more of his experience on the floor while he was playing, because your boy dropped out round 4. It just happened to be like that. But what I want to highlight specifically was I think everybody at this point knows about the turnout. But what I want to highlight specifically is going to be Tales of Aria, the set, which was announced. And I think that was for me the most exciting part of the weekend, because I've drafted every set of Flesh and Blood, and hopping into those Aria draft side events kind of renewed my excitement for the game. Not that I didn't play it every day already. But it has a very sound draft experience. And I think that was my takeaway of success, is that not only did LSS manage to put on an event with more than 1,000 people in our first year out of COVID, but they also managed to release a very strong set alongside it. So now we're 4 main sets into Fab, and the gameplay has not gotten stale. It's still too soon to the jury's still out on if there is truly power creep in this set or not. But I would say that my biggest measure of success was the set that came out alongside the event. And that was mostly what I was focused on. I was playing I played almost no side events after the main event. I only played in 2 Aria drafts. And then the rest of the time I was taking my Aria draft list and playing whoever would play me with it. Yeah. So that was it.
I did quite a bit of the playing the draft deck outside of the draft too. Scott, how about you, man? What was your expectation takeaway kind of going into the whole thing?
As far as I'm concerned, the whole thing was a huge success. Number of people. I even remember talking with you, Sean, right before the event started in terms of like expectations and results. Like out of all the team members we had, we said if we get 3 people in to top 64, like that's a solid goal, and we managed to make it. 3 of us were in.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, that's. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna give you guys. I'm gonna give the viewers a little bit more context leading up to Tails. So the team as a whole, what was the training? And Sean, I assume you want to share this with everybody, and you don't want to keep it secret. But if you do, that's fine. But what was the training like? What were you guys doing leading up to the event to prepare yourself for this? First high level thing. You had the road to nationals that everybody was playing at as many as they could. But walk me through, what was the training setup for the viewers who haven't caught on to that?
Yeah, I think to be truthful, I think the training was not nearly as rigorous what we're going to be doing for nationals. Our main focus for coming into the calling was making sure that, because we're a decentralized team, so from day one we've had guys. Chad's in New York, I'm in Florida with Jimmy, Jacob, a few other guys, and we've got guys in Seattle, we've got guys in California, we've got guys in Ohio. And so our biggest thing leading into the calling was making sure that on an individual level each of us felt sound in our own decks. So we didn't really get to reap the rewards of like playing as a team. We had no team deck going into the calling. Our main way of growing as a team was communicating local metas. Because we're decentralized, we say, hey, this is what we're seeing in Seattle. We're seeing a ton of Prism. We're seeing a ton of Prism Chain, Bravo. No one's playing Bolton out here. And then in Florida, we're like, yeah, we're seeing Bravo, Bolton, Chain, Dash, right? And we were kind of explaining those lists. So going into the calling, there was never an instance where one of our players, win or lose, was surprised by what they were presented. Whether even if it was a Reinar player or Levia player. I think something that we've been really good at as a team is being well educated on metas, like I said, but also card interactions and potential builds. So that was a big focus of ours, and I think it paid off, especially going into. I don't think any of us. I think only Jake and Tyler competed in the ProQuest. Jake went 5-1 and finished 15th, and Tyler I think went 3-1 before dropping or something like that. And in day one for the Aria release, we had 2 guys go 6-0 and a few guys go 5-1, Chad included. So we're very comfortable with the mechanics of this game. And so moving into nationals outside of the calling is we're really going to focus on, 3 or so decks as a team. And we're going to make sure those are the best decks for those heroes. We might even have 2 decks on the same hero. But we're going to make sure that we have sound decks that everybody knows, and then we're still going to benefit from that communication of metas. So I think that should really help our performance at nationals.
Cool. I didn't realize that the biggest setup for you guys was nationals. I guess it makes more sense now, but this was more or less like we need to qualify, and then nationals is kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah, exactly. Because it becomes a lot of work when you can't meet up with the guys at the local game store, and everyone's in different time zones. So our focus was during skirmish season, it was forget skirmish season, get your wins if you want, learn CC. And then for RTN season, it was get your invite and make it in there. And safely we've now got 10 of our 16 guys with invites. We've got 4 RTN wins.
That's awesome.
And now we're ready to focus down, and everybody's built the relationships. I think that was a big thing, is convincing players that like it is worthwhile to work on a team deck and not on that personal deck. It's tough, right? Like you want to play the hero that speaks to you. But when you build those team relationships and you start to see the benefits of what it's like to contribute into something, it becomes a lot easier. And I think we're at that point as a team.
Yeah.
For sure. I took some inputs from other team players' chain lists to put together with the ideas that I had to make my list for the calling. Like that definitely helped upgrade it from where it had been before that.
Yeah, I think the decentralize of the team is really important too, because you're able to see things that are different than just your local kind of play group that's testing for the whole thing. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that we have as a team.
Yeah. And like out here in New York, for example, I was able to see the, Joe Cologne, some of those Hyperloops guys, the way they were taking the chain decks, and it would be less of a surprise for the team because, that's only as far as I've seen happening in the New York area.
Yeah.
Going into the calling.
Well, let's hop into day 2. So let's talk about day 2 of the calling. What were what were your guys' emotions? Day 2 was kind of the big kickoff, right? The big actual main event stuff. Like, what were your emotions? What were the things going into that? And what did you see on the field that you were expecting or not expecting?
So on my end, that was my primary goal going into the calling. Was I ideally wanted to day 2. Like that was the target. Anything else, not even thinking about it. So when I managed to make day 2, I was generally, I would say, able to keep kind of the nerves at bay. I wasn't really thinking about top 8 or like winning the whole thing or anything like that at the time. It was just new day. I get to play more Fab, and it's going to be against really good people.
Yeah.
I was lucky and slightly surprised, I guess, with my own personal matchups because it was like 60-something% chain in the top 64.
Yeah,
I forget the exact
I don't
number.
remember exactly.
I know it's massive percentage of chain, and my first 2 rounds I faced Dorinthias, and there were only, I believe, 4 or 5 in the whole top 64. One of them, the first one I played was a Dory Axes build, and the second one was a Dory Dawnblade build. And actually, shout out to Heath from our team. The rounds that I had with him the week before the calling on his, or maybe it was 2 weeks before the calling, but on his Dory list, absolutely gave me the tools I needed to know how to approach that game. And it was probably the closest, most stressful game I had of the whole tournament.
Interesting. Walk me through that a little bit. What did you? Because I played a Dory and I lost against, and I played Chain. So tell me what your setup was and how you played Chain against Dory.
With my Chain deck, like the general theory of it is to go a little taller and a little bigger than people expect. And so often throughout the tournament, I was able to be on a very strong front foot by Soul Shackle 3.
Okay.
And so I did get a little lucky in terms of I didn't get lots of all red hands followed by not great no attack hands, those kinds of things that happen. But generally that was kind of the pattern to most of my games, and it happened in that game as well. But Dory is Dory and can come back from pretty far and swing a whole slew of damage. So it was still a pretty close game. And it got into an end game scenario where it was basically I have to overblock properly based on what he's playing and what I am guessing that he has to add on top if he had an extra card and based on resources and such. And overblock that, get my Soul Shackles, attack back 2 to 3 times, generally still 3, thankfully, which kind of got us into this end game of I could extend and not block something and try to kill him then and there, but it's risky. So I had to play a very careful end game. Like he went from 8 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to dead. And each of those was turn by turn.
So you just kind of slow roll it out at the end, just to make sure that you're not.
I had a high enough life buffer that I was able to eat my own blood debt turn to turn towards the end.
Interesting. So in that scenario, do you try to just keep like 1 3-pitch? Is that the idea? Like you just try to?
Yeah. And with my deck, it's very centrally based on 3 attacks off of a blue pitch is the ideal turn And then if you get, shadow puppetry, if you get other go again, sometimes you can get off the full 4.
Gotcha.
But I generally like top rate off of 1 cost attacks, pitch a blue, get 3 of them in a turn.
Gotcha.
And usually they're buffed with, howls or runs or other things. And that's basically how it worked out. But and also going back to the question of preparation for the calling, I honestly think a big reason why I was able to win that game was some homework that Sean gave me about 2 to 3 weeks before the calling. I was kind of plateauing a bit in my road to nationals, not being able to quite make it into top 8 or top 4. And I had a chat with Sean, and he basically gave me the homework of drop chain. You're not allowed to touch anything but Katsu for like 1 to 2 weeks. And so we built a basic, nothing interesting or spicy, very straightforward, mid-range-ish to defensive Katsu deck. And I played it for 2 weeks straight.
And what did that do for you?
It got me much better reps on the true fundamentals of Fab. In terms of, especially as aggro Katsu, things like endgame, how it's really won in inches and how you really need to stick to your game plan, wait for the right moment, and plan for how that moment is going to happen for you to get over the top and get the kill. So like the end game of that Dory game, even though I was playing Chain, it felt exactly in a lot of ways like some of those games that I was doing with the Katsu deck at the time.
Yeah, I love that about Flesh and Blood, that like doesn't matter what hero you play, there is a centralized format to the game. So like it always feels the same. The format of the game is so baked into each individual character and each individual card. Even I think it was somebody was talking about it on a podcast or something where like each card is so balanced based around this criteria that like the game just always plays the way that it needs to be played.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of cards, you can just like know a little bit about it and guess correctly the rest of it in terms of what its block value is going to be or what the plus number is going to be based on color. All of those kinds of things just keep consistency very clear in the game.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Sean?
Yeah, I think that, I guess for those listening, I think the reason Katsu is so important to play, I think it should be, if you're looking to be competitive at Flesh and Blood, I think Chain in past meta was like a fine pick. Like you're going to crush people. Like you're going to roll a dice and you're going to crush people. If you can do math, you can play Chain more or less. You're going to miss critical plays like Chad was talking about with that Dorinthia, where it's like, can I pull 2 from the Dorinthia's hand, know that Dorinthia has max 1 action, a Dawn Blade swing, and an attack reaction, or, some variation of that, and continue to hold tempo and draw the game out.
Yeah.
Or and you're going to miss those things if you don't get that. And I think the reason Ninja is so good at that, Katsu in particular, Ira is a little bit too strong in Blitz. That +1 damage really does matter in Blitz. But the reason I think Katsu is particularly geared towards that in Classic Constructed is because it doesn't seem like it, but a mid-range to control Katsu matchup has very finite resources to kill you. It may seem like death by 1,000 Kodachis, but the reality is it's death by a well-timed Fluster Fist Red tutor. It's death by a well-timed Razor Reflex over your sink below to get that go again, a mass trigger, and a draw. And if Katsu allows you to stop that, like one razor, like a razor reflexing a red woman gust wave and getting blocked out is like almost your whole game as Katsu. Like that is so substantial. And if you're running something like a Breeze Rider Boots build on the mid range, if you break that Breeze Rider Boots, or if you break that breaking scales and don't get the trigger off of it, even if the opponent overblocks you for 3 on a sink below, like it's gonna hurt, because the reality is it's not 1 damage, it's a hit trigger that's gonna raise your damage ceiling for that turn, and you have finite chances to raise your damage ceiling as Katsu. The same is true about efficiently blocking with Flick Flax, and so that's why I think that I think things will change with the Arya meta, which is unfortunate, but prior to this, Katsu was the best way to learn Flesh and Blood, in my opinion.
Interesting. I like that.
I would tend to agree from that exercise.
That's pretty cool. Good work, Sean. That's a genius idea. Where did you get that idea? You just off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I just started playing Ninja, as you know. I was a dirty Ira player. But the thing about that is there was a reason why back in January and et cetera, that people, especially New Zealand, like around the calling in January, they were saying the Ira Mirror is the most difficult match to play in the game. And it's true because you guys have the same resources. And sometimes there's variance. Like you're going to get turn 2 Command and Conquered for 7 and it's going to ruin your day and you're never going to get tempo again. Right. But for the most part, that game's going to run down to having 10 cards in a deck, right? Especially post-drone. Post-drone, that match was really, really tough. Because you had to like bring in more aggro pieces. But the reality was you had very similar resources to your opponent, and you had to use them more efficiently than your opponent, given constantly changing contexts. And that made me realize it. And then just from playing the mid-range build, particularly because I picked up the Winton list when it came out, when Winton won the ProQuest, and I played it, and it clicked with that same thing. It was like I realized that I could either really easily win a game by fatiguing out my opponent and efficiently using stuff, or if I slipped up, like the whole game could slip out from underneath me. So those were the realizations, and then I just started kind of prescribing that to Chad and then other people on the team when they're saying, hey, you know, I'm looking to learn something new in the game, or, you know, I'm experiencing a ceiling, and particularly, and this isn't me roasting Chad, but this was something that I would watch Chad's games. He would be in a top 8 of an armory event or a skirmish even, and I would just watch him kind of lose the game. Like he'd have tempo, and then he just the tempo would evaporate, and I was like, Katsu, you got to go Katsu, because you can't afford to let the tempo evaporate.
Just got to learn how to just push over it and be the most efficient with your cards as possible.
Yeah.
Well, be the most efficient with your opponent's cards as well, because what your opponent is doing, because drawing 2 cards out, you have to figure out how you're going to draw 2 cards out, and this is a big thing. And I've lost games. I lost games. I was going to have a tear on the Tales of Aria sealed event, but I dominated an arrow as Lexi when I should have given it +1. The +1 would have gotten it closer. It would have actually been lethal, and it would have forced more cards out of their hand. But my thought was I just wanted to get the guaranteed damage off. And what happened there was I was at 7 health, and I'm like, for sure, I can block 2, dominate an arrow next turn, and just win the game. Get them to 1 health, right? But what that did was Briar had exact C's in hand, and I was just blocking out from that point. That was it. The game was over, and it was because of that 1 bit. So it's not only about how you're using your hand, but how you're going to force your opponent to use their hand.
Yeah, sequencing is another thing that carries over from Katsu to Chain and plenty of others. But Katsu is a great way to learn around that with the combo pieces and second cycling the deck, all of those things.
It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of detail that they put into planning out your turns and playing. It's crazy the amount of brain power that is beyond my ability to play this game.
You're gonna need.
That's why I love chatting with you guys, because you guys,
dude,
I'm just how much damage can I get in as fast as possible? But
dude, I'm gonna need 1,000 reps on Lexi before I can run that hero. That hero is with the 2 arsenal slots. I don't know if anybody listening has tried it, but it's just your lines of play are so different than anything else, and you have so many more that you really have to think about every block so much more substantially. But I won't go too deep into that. I just kind of wanted to leave that little nugget right there.
Okay, so what do you guys think about the meta, and what did we put down? There was where is it all? 42% chain. What are your thoughts? That was day 2? Is that what it was?
That was day 1. No, I thought it was day 1. There were 42% chain.
No, I think it was 25% overall, and it got a very high conversion rate.
Got it.
Yeah, it was 42% day 2, and I think it was
5 out of the top 8.
Yeah, so I think it was 60 some, whatever that is, percent in top 8. So what are your guys' thoughts? Obviously, Prism won. If anybody didn't know that, and you've been living under a rock, Prism won. So there's that. But what do you think about Chain having that much of the meta? Did it surprise you? Were you obviously it didn't surprise anybody. But like, what's your thoughts on it as a game design?
Game design. You want me to comment on LSS now?
No, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious going into an event like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's hard to judge Chain as a hero, and more about it. Chain really shows the worst of variance for the players playing it and for the players against it, right? So like you can run a deck that has a 60% win rate. Like you can feel good enough against like anyone who top 64 that event, right? Like let's say one of your testing partners was in top 64, right? And you beat them most of the time. That doesn't change anything if Chain gets a double Art of War turn on turn 2 and happens to have a Riftbind in hand, draws into a Plunder Run and a bunch of other stuff, right? Like that means nothing, right? Your practice means nothing. And so do I think that sucks? Yeah, it does. But there were also people who worked around it. I think Tyler, the winner of the calling, is a perfect example. I think that there's that one Dash player who made it to the top 8. Fantastic. I'm a Dash player. I think that's awesome. And if you talk to me before the calling, and I've said this on video, and I've said this with Zach, I was like, Prism's going to win the calling. And it was for the very same reason that Prism actually won the calling. And Prism just has access to a more flexible board of cards that are more impactful on average than other heroes. So I'll give you an example. Like Dash right now, or Dash has been the most sound hero in the game, in my opinion. And there's a reason why Matt Rogers and a lot of people will play that hero, is because you can run a 48 to 52 deck core and board in the rest of the cards, right? And board for specific, you can play aggro one game, you could play completely slow controlled defensive, or you can play mid-range, right? And that mid-range it allows you to go from here to here, right? And Prism, because of the strength of the Heralds, Prism kind of lets you do the same thing. And so I didn't think that the build would be as defensive as what Tyler's was, to be honest with everybody. But I did think Prism was going to win the calling for that reason. And there are ways to overcome variance with sound deck builds and game design. I think Prism's I think we're going to see that in Oldhim and Lexi, where Lexi's going to have an average game against a ninja player, right? Like the game is going to be tough. It's going to be grindy, right? But then completely say, no, I don't care about your variance Chain. Here's a Frostbite token, and I'm going to force you to discard a card, right? So I think that, yeah, it sucks. And I think that also people super worried about Chain getting more support with like Duskblade and all of that. Like it's totally valid. But again, the Monarch Casino works both ways. And there are also ways to, I guess, win the pot without even stepping into the casino.
Chad is a Chain player and part of the high percentage. What did you feel? Did you feel like it was a fair meta, a fair breakdown?
Yeah, I would say that the 22, whatever that is, % of overall players in the calling falls about in line to what I would expect. It's one of the new heroes. It's known to be really good. It's the boogeyman, so like that much of it being played makes sense. I would say it seems slightly concerning how the conversion rates worked out, because that just kept getting a sizable percentage bump into conversions all the way up to top 8. So maybe in the current meta, it is a little bit overpowered. And I still say a little because this game is so much more balanced than any other that I've played. But like it is a little bit far, I think, and I'll take advantage of that myself by playing Chain for the event. But it is also, like Sean said, it goes both ways. Like Rodinets, I had more than one that I did not top 8 because red hand followed by red hand, you've lost the game.
Right. And I think that's what I noticed. I played Chain too. I played it horribly, but like that's what I noticed going into it was like, and from talking to other people too, is like you just don't know what your hand's gonna look like. Whereas another hero, it looks totally different. If you're like what your deck's gonna do, you can control it. you don't have the variance, and like that was to me like when as soon as I started realizing it, I was like, it doesn't matter. Even the conversion rate, like the conversion rate's going to be higher in my opinion, because there's going to be a lot of chain mirrors. There's a lot of other things that contribute to that, right? Like, you know, if you have 22% of the meta, then you're going to have a ton of chain mirrors that are going to end up pushing more chain to the top. Just kind of the way that it works. So I don't know. Again, I always trust LSS's design. I think frostbite tokens are going to be huge. I think it's going to kill chain. I don't think chain's going to be anything.
Chain will look different if chain sticks around.
Yeah.
Now, what is it? Channel Lake Frigid is going to be the card. Channel Lake Frigid is you can have 3 of it in your deck, and while it's out, and you can have it out up to probably 3 turns feasibly, but while it's out, every action or activated ability your opponent takes costs an extra resource. So it's like a permanent frostbite token for the time that it's out. It's pretty great. It's actually pretty awful to play against. I kind of hate that card, but yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting meta. And I think that I'm not gonna go on a complete rant about this, but I think that I'm gonna say it publicly. I think we're gonna see a very Lexi Bravo dominated meta. I do not think Oldhim is going to be as good as Bravo. I think that Bravo's support from this set's going to bring him up to like the top of tier 1. And I think that we're going to see Lexi, if not win nationals, have a very strong showing of nationals. And I will die on that hill until that day.
I don't have any competitive games to play anymore because, well, I never had any to play in the first place, but I'm going Stompy Briar and Constructed, and it's gonna be
nice.
It's gonna be dumb. It's gonna be horribly bad, but it's gonna be fun. Chet, any interesting matchups that kind of like were of note?
Yeah, I would say day 1, about half of my matches were chain mirrors. I would like to give a quick run through on the last match of day 1. I faced quite possibly the most unique chain list that I've ever seen, mine included. And so this guy, after the match, was upset to not get the win and guarantee that he was in top 64. But he had apparently at least 15 win streak against chain decks prior to that.
Wow. Okay, pause right here.
To beat chain decks.
Pause right here, because if you want to hear the rest of this, you're going to have to go over to the Team Kitchen Fable YouTube channel to watch the rest of this, because this is where things start to get interesting. So, all right, continue and tell us about that matchup.
Yeah, so it was a game